OnPoint's tutorials, tips, and tours. I'm also a member of the West Michigan Quilters Guild. The West Michigan Quilters Guild is a group of about 450 artists in West Michigan. Our charter for the guild is twofold. First, it's a charity guild, so we make pillows for our hospice here in West Michigan. We also give baby dolls with little quilts that we make for the Santa Claus girls. And our main charity is the Spectrum Neonatal. There we made about 1,300 baby crib quilts this past year. The second part of our charter is education. So we bring in 5 national speakers a year to speak to our guild and to teach classes. Part of our guild is also to put on a show. We do a biannual quilt show. It's really, really fun. At the show, we try to achieve both of those charter missions. The first, by selling raffle tickets and entry into the show, we raise money for the Spectrum Neonatal. And at the show, we let some of the vendors and teachers and artists do demos. And OnPoint was there to record the demos this year so that you'll be able to see all of those demos. I hope that you really enjoy these demos and learn a lot from them.
I'm here at the front of house at the show with Betty Carpenter. Betty, tell me about your involvement with the Guild and the show.
I've been a member now for at least 15 years, and I have chaired certain committees on here, planning on doing one for the next show, and it's a lot of fun.
And this year, so I've been on the committee this year, obviously, and it's a 2-year commitment when you're planning this event. This is a 2-year process, isn't it?
Yes. You get a little break between now and when they start meeting, but within the next couple of months, they'll start in for the next show already. That's why it's so well organized.
Absolutely. And do you participate in a bee?
Yes, I'm with the Berry Patchers. We meet north of Rockford. And it's a monthly thing, and then we have dinner once in a while and do a little socializing, so it's traditional bee stuff.
So I kind of think that the quilting is an excuse to get together with your friends?
I don't know if I want to admit to that or not, but I think you're right.
Well, I know it's one of my special benefits. When I'm quilting, I am with my friends, and We're making beautiful things, so it's wonderful.
That's right. And good friends have something in common, and you can't have something more in common than this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Betty.
You're welcome.
My next guest is Julie Johnson. And Julie, I understand you are the chairperson for the raffle quilt for the show.
I sure am. We have 11 different quilts that we raffle off on Sunday afternoon. The proceeds for these go to various charities in the West Michigan area. Although we all like to shop and look at the quilts, making money for our charities is what West Michigan Quilters Guild is all about.
And quilters are known to be a very generous bunch, and I also know that groups of us get together to make things.
Well, and that's where all these quilts come from. We have what we call quilting bees, and they all get together and they put these quilts together and they donate them so that we can make some money for our charities, and everything is donated by these wonderful people who get together and create these quilts.
And this is a wonderful opportunity to just experience the color and the texture and the wonderful things at a quilt show and do it for a good cause.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the variety that we have is phenomenal, from traditional quilts to modern quilts to lap quilts. I mean, it's up to the bees to decide whatever it is that they want to put together, and they always come out fantastic.
So if you are not a member of a quilt guild, please go find one. And then find a bee, because quilters love being in bees. It's a marvelous opportunity to do something you love with people that you enjoy. Sue Cortez at Quilts on the Grand. And Sue, you have a couple of hats on your head, don't you?
I sure do. I'm in charge of the judging for the show as well as a vendor here.
And so, what do you enjoy most?
Well, I enjoy both. I enjoy equal time on equal parts. Judging is a hobby of mine, and also I'm a professional judge, so I get to know the other certified judges. So I get to hire them and bring my friends in and show them our wonderful show. But then this is my day job where I'm dyeing fabric and getting to make quilts with my hand-dyed fabric.
And you're not going to find a better area than a quilt show, a regional quilt show, to display your products.
That's right. And we have wonderful quilters in our area who really like working with original fabrics in their pieces. So
that's great. Well, Sue, I hope you have a great show and enjoy. Nancy, look what I found at the quilt show. A man!
That's right.
I'm here with Steve Edwards, and Steve is a vendor with Quilts Plus. And Steve, tell me about what this experience is like from a man's point of view.
I get to carry a lot of heavy stuff in. I get to help set it up, and then I get to interact with all the customers. It's great.
And quilt people, we love our fabric, don't we?
Oh, yes, you do. Very creative. Love design and color, that's for sure.
And do you quilt?
No.
Would you like to learn? I know a great place where you could learn.
Kathy told me I cannot learn how to quilt, otherwise I'd drive everybody crazy.
That's great. Anyway, Steve and his wife Kathy have been participating at our show for many years, haven't you?
Exactly. When we first opened our store, we started coming up here to Quilts on the Grand.
That's great. So, Quilts on the Grand is a wonderful experience for not only just women, but men too.
At the West Michigan Quilt Guild, Quilts on the Grand 2016, Barbie Brooks from the Backstreet Quilts in Bad Axe, Michigan, came and taught us to do hand applique with wool. I think you'll really like this.
I'm very excited to be sharing wool applique with all of you. It is my passion. It is my passion of the quilting world, and our store really shows that. We love handwork. So what today I'm going to show you a very simple beginner's project with wool using the freezer paper method applique. So we're going to begin by tracing all of our patterns with freezer paper, what most of you have in your kitchens, right? And so we're going to take this piece of freezer paper, we're going to lay it down on top of our pattern, and with a pencil, we're going to just quickly draw that shape. Most of the time with applique patterns are already in reverse, which means that rather you use the freezer paper method or you use the a fusible method, then your pattern is already ready for you to use whatever method you need. So you're going to quickly, with the freezer paper method, we're going to quickly draw the patterns that we need. Then we're going to take our scissors, after we have our patterns cut, or drawn, traced, we're going to cut them out, and we're going to leave an area around the shape we have just drawn. I haven't cut it out right on the lines. Then we'll take all of these, once they are cut, And with our iron on our wool setting, we will take our freezer paper and we will lay it to the top of our wool, and we will take it to our iron and we will iron it in place. And it doesn't take very long for that to happen, because what we're doing with the iron and the freezer paper is melting the wax that's on the back side of the freezer paper, and it is adhering it then to the wool. The next step is to then take your shape that we have traced, and we're going to do the final cutting, and with your favorite pair of scissors, and I recommend for wool work with wool applique that you use a pair of scissors that are very sharp and will cut right to the tip. Do you see how this, I can cut right to the tip with this pair of scissors? And the other reason that that is able to do that is this pair of scissors also have a serrated edge. So I recommend with wool applique that you also use a pair of scissors that have serrated edges and will cut right to the very tip edge of the scissors. So now we've cut all of our pieces to their final size, and this is how very easy the freezer paper comes off, because the wax does not stick that long, and it also does not bother your wool. It doesn't leave any kind of residue on your wool, okay? And then I'm going to take this and I will lay it in its final position on my wool piece. And as you can see, I have already stitched the J, I've already stitched my piece of snow, and I've also stitched my O, and now I've laid the Y on. Now, I like to use two methods of pinning my applique in place. I either use a needle, a glass head needle, which is very fine and doesn't distort when it goes in, or the other method that I like to use is using a stapler and just staple it in place. And then I'm not directly stitching around the head of a pin or or the large ball on the end. But I love the stapler method, and the stapler method too doesn't leave any holes in your wool. So after you've traced it and you've got it in place, you're ready now to stitch. And so I'm using pearl cotton, which and I like size 12 the best for especially small work or medium work. And I use a variety of pearl cottons. I love Valdani pearl cottons, and I love Percenthia pearl cottons, but DMC is out there. There's all kinds. And the thing with wool applique is that you can also use your floss. Many of us still have floss in our homes from when we were embroidery and or cross-stitching years ago. And so floss or pearl cotton, either one of them, work well for wool applique. And the other thing that I love about wool applique too, and especially what I'm showing you here today, are just basic embroidery stitches. The blanket stitch is what I'm doing the majority of this work with, but then like the O, that's been done with the stem stitch or the back stitch, and those are the only two stitches that are used in the project that I'm working on today. Now the projects behind me that are hanging on the wall, there's 3 different levels there. The project here to my left is a more intermediate project, and so is the project to my right. That's a more intermediate, where the one right behind me is very much an advanced stitcher's project with a lot of different types of stitching on it. But what I'm showing you today is a very basic beginners, very easy beginners project. So now I've threaded my needle, and I like a chenille needle, and what the difference between a chenille needle and an embroidery needle is a chenille needle has a larger eye. It also has it also carries a sharp point. And I like a size 24. And it comes in many different sizes, but a lot of it just depends on your own personal preference once you start your stitching. I like a little finer, shorter needle, that's why I use a 24. But the majority of people will start with a size 20 or a size 22 chenille needle. So I'm going to do basic embroidery. The blanket stitch is a punch in onto your wool and a right straight back down. You're always going to carry your thread also towards your body, and try to always carry your stitching to come back to you. And the consistency of the blanket stitch is the most beautiful when it is consistent. And as I'm stitching, I'm concentrating that my stitches are approximately 1/4 of an inch apart, not only here from stitch to stitch, but also that it's 1/4 of an inch in and down, even though this is a small piece. It's a punch in, you're coming up on the edge of the applique with your needle. Your thread is under your needle. I'm pulling my thread seat over my needle, my needle over my thread and pulling and making a nice square 90-degree stitch along the edge of my applique. The other really nice thing about wool applique is that it's a raw edged applique, so you don't have to finish your edges with wool. You want to be careful when you're choosing your wools though, and where you're buying your wools from, that they are wools that are stable and have been felted. Or if they have not been felted, then you need to learn the process of how to felt your wool before you use it. In wool applique, you don't want to use any wool that hasn't been pre-shrunk because you want it to be very stable in your project. So you're just going to continue this all the way around. I think this is one of the most important steps that you learn in blanket stitching right from the beginning, is that I recommend that there's always 3 stitches right here in the corner. Any corner that you come to, there's 1 stitch. This is the 2nd stitch in the corner, and we're going to turn the corner and come right back in. I'm hoping they're catching this. And the 3rd corner, the 3rd stitch in the corner, making it a square corner as you've come around with your stitching. And we're going to continue right on around this piece, this prepared piece. There's many different, as I'm stitching here and you're watching me stitch, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the different things that wool applique can become as you gain your skill in your stitching. Many stitchers go to using what's called wool thread, just general thread. They whip stitch in place with their wool thread, that thread becomes a part of the actual fiber of the wool, and you use thread that matches your wool so that your stitches become almost invisible, just like in your needle turn applique. When people use those tiny, tiny stitches to hold their applique in place. Well, we're in the more advanced stages of wool, as you gain your skill, that becomes an avenue to then go on to the stitching that is seen in the one behind me that I said was more advanced. You stitch everything in place with the wool thread right along the edge, and then you come back and add all the different decorative stitches that you find on those pieces. So we're going to continue right on around this piece. Here I am again at the corner. I've put one stitch in, I'm coming and laying the second stitch right on the corner, then I'm making the curve and coming back and placing another stitch in that area and coming right on around. And then you can't see that corner? Okay, let me see if we can do this. I'm coming to another corner. Can you see that? And I've got one stitch in here. Then I'm going, oh dear. Then I'm going down and placing another stitch. Do you see that? That's the second stitch. And then I'm coming around the corner and I'm back in that same stitch, only a little further down, and it's, do you see that? I know the brown on the brown is kind of hard to see, isn't it? After the demonstration, we can. So we're going to continue on around. When we're totally finished, then of course all that you're going to finish up is the embellishments, if there's any more embellishment, and follow your pattern and finish it up the way, again, with blanket stitch. So that's the basics to wool embroidery. And I love it because it's quick, it's easy, it's portable, it can go with you, and I enjoy it and want to pass that passion on to other people. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that tutorial and might even try some wool applique on your own. I think you'll find it very enjoyable, and what I like best about it is it really doesn't require that much precision. It's the type of thing that you can do while riding in a car.